The following is a paid political program.
In August in Chicago, the Democratic Party will nominate its candidate for President of the United States. There are two roads to that nomination. One is to seek commitments through discussions with political leaders. The other is to go to the people, to present your qualifications and your viewpoints on the great national issues directly to the people in primaries. That course, it seems to me, is the most consistent with the meaning of American democracy. In any event, that is the course I have chosen, as I made clear last March when I announced my candidacy.
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. My candidacy must be tested beginning now, 5 months before the convention, and not after the primaries are over. I think that is the least that I can do to meet my responsibilities to the Democratic Party and to the people of the United States.
Having done well in these other states is helpful. And I think no matter what happens, I got a very tough road ahead.
We've done great things. I think we are a compassionate nation. I think we're a generous nation. And I think that we want to live in peace and tranquility here within our own country. I think we want to abide by the law. But I think things have fallen away over the period of the last several years. And I think we want to get them back on the right track. And that's why I come here to the state of Indiana and ask for your support.
This is Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Tonight I want to show a small fraction of my travels across the country and the discussions I had with businessmen and farmers, housewives and workers, with individuals and with crowds in city squares.
From the green Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from sunny California to ice-bound Labrador, she's mighty tall and handsome and known quite well by all.
This election will really be a contest between the past and the future, between the politics of tranquility and the politics of action, between those who are satisfied with this country just as we have it at the moment and those who want a better America for our children. This is true across the board, in our foreign policies, in our cities, in the way we deal with our natural environment, in the way we deal with our own people. But nowhere is there less cause for contentment than in the state of our economy. I think those who preach to us now that we should have the politics of joy or the politics of happiness can hardly take into consideration either the fact that the war in Vietnam continues or the fact that we have to have 12,000 troops come into our capital city of the United States and patrol the streets, or that 90 cities just 2 weeks ago erupted in violence and lawlessness and rioting and disorder. I think that we have problems in this country. I think we are a great country, and I think we are a generous country, and I think we are a compassionate country, and a country that has accomplished a great deal, and a people that have accomplished a great deal. I'd like to concentrate on the fact that we have a gross national product of just more than $800 billion. I'd like to concentrate on those fine things that have been accomplished over the period of the last 8 years. And I'm very proud of what the Democratic Party has done under President Kennedy and under President Johnson. But the fact is that when we talk about the politics of joy, we also have tremendous problems in the United States, with which all of you are going to have to deal. the problems of blacks and whites living together, living in the same city together, the problems of riots and violence and disorder and lawlessness that's affected so many of our communities in the United States over the period of the last 2 or 3 years. But the fact is, it affects your life, because this is our home. This is America. This is where we live. This is where we abide. And we can't separate ourselves. This is our home. And when one part of the United States does well, it has an effect on the rest of the country. And when one part of the United States does badly, it also has an effect on the rest of the United States. And I think the first thing that we have to do here in the United States is face our problems and then take action to deal with them. And that's what I intend to do. This is a year of crisis for the promises which have governed our policies for the last 3 years. Their failure that has brought us danger abroad and difficulty here within our own country. And this is the year that must be changed. This is the year that the debate and the discussion will go on. This is the year in which people are really going to decide what direction they want the country to move in. That's why the state of California is so important. Not just the number of votes that will represent the state at the various conventions, but the fact that the people, the most populous state in the Union, is going to make a determination or judgment what direction they want the United States to move in, what the direction they want the Democratic Party to move in. I happen to feel strongly that we've made mistakes in the past. I'm proud of being a Democrat. I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But I think there's much that needs to be done within our own country, much that is undone, and much that won't be done if we stand still or if we don't move in the direction that I think the vast majority of American people all across this country, whether it's Nebraska or Indiana or the District of Columbia or here in the state of California, I think that the Democratic Party is going to make a terrible error if it decides that it will still move in the old course and not branch out and try the new course for the country. We have to make it clear in the United States. We have to make it clear in the United States that we cannot tolerate lawlessness and violence and rioting and disorder. And if I'm elected President of the United States, I'm going to make that absolutely clear. I think we have to ensure that those who live in our urban centers and our rural areas of the United States have jobs and employment. I think we have to move away from the welfare system, move away from the idea of a dole and a handout, and have jobs at decent pay and decent salary instead of a welfare system. That's what I intend to do. We have to go to you, those of us who run for political office. We have to appeal to you on the basis of what we are going to do, what we intend to do, what we intend to accomplish. And it seems to me that that is democracy and the democratic system at its finest. For farming and agriculture are really the root of our economic strength in the United States. Your produce actually sustains our country and makes a major difference for us around the rest of the world. Yet for all that you have accomplished, your progress is blocked really by the forces of nature and of the marketplace. So I think we have to develop a system within the United States in which the farmer is protected and where he's able to at least fight for himself. This state suffers, as you know far better than I, from a chronic shortage of rainfall. And I'm told that this year has been the worst in some time. I heard that Richard Nixon came in and said that there was going to be rain, that he came, and then there was some rain. Actually, the rain was coming in preparation for my visit. So don't listen to the other people. And I don't think that we can wait until rural America has disappeared and then write books, history books, about what we should have done. A principal task of national leadership and of the next administration must be to bring the needs of rural areas to the attention of the rest of America, and then to engage in the forceful action that is required to restore these areas to the rightful place that they should have in prosperity and productivity. Thank you very, very much. talking for years, those of you who've been talking for years about tell it like it is, and I don't know whether it's going to have your approval or disapproval, but I'm going to tell you what I think, so we can understand that. What is my position on the young men that fled this country in order not to be involved in the war? I think that they very, very likely violated the laws of the United States, and they're going to have to be prosecuted when they come back.
That's a great answer.
And let me say two things. I think first a man has to respond to his own conscience. But second, I would tell you quite frankly, I don't think responding to your conscience is leaving the United States and going to Canada. If you feel in your own conscience that the war is wrong and that you can't go in the army and cannot be involved in the conflict, then you can face the penalties of the law here in the United States. But to leave your own country and desert your own country under these circumstances or any other circumstances seems to me to be unacceptable. And I wouldn't accept it if I'm elected President of the United States.
The reality of the event and the force of people's
Most of this audience, however, like Americans everywhere, were interested in Vietnam. In his speeches and advertisements, Senator McCarthy has made an important issue of the assertion that he spoke first against the war. In 1965 and 1966, I publicly opposed making the Vietnamese War an American war and called for a negotiated settlement. A few courageous senators spoke out even before I did. Senator McCarthy, however, supported the war until 1966, when we had sent 200,000 troops to Vietnam. This is not an important matter, for he has proven himself an effective opponent since then. Still, I also believe my own earlier opposition had some influence. But more important than the past is the hope for future peace. It is to that end that I have not only criticized, but offered alternative policies of my own on the Senate floor, in a book I published 7 months ago, and in public speeches.
One thing is clear in this year of 1968. I believe in this country as I've traveled across, and that is that the American people want no more Vietnams. Yet at this very time, from officials high in the levels of government, we hear that we must be prepared to face more Vietnams in the future. Seemingly, illusion still lives, and wisdom is yet to come. Surely it is now too late to pretend that the war in Vietnam has been a success, or that the well-being of our country and our position in the world can be committed to its repetition in the future. But we must learn to make clear and discriminating judgments about where the national interest really lies, about what kind of commitments should be made to protect the security of the United States. We can and we must help our allies and our friends, like the NATO countries, Korea, or Israel, against external enemies. We have to meet our responsibilities around the world. Sometimes, as in the Cuban Missile Crisis in October of 1962, the Berlin Crisis of 1962, there will be great danger and great risk. At other times, as it was during the days of the Marshall Plan, when 10% of the federal budget was devoted to the reconstruction of Europe, there will be great cost. And we must meet our responsibilities in the future, even when that is dangerous and even when that is costly to ourselves. And I think the American people are prepared to meet that cost and make that effort. But we cannot and must not take on as our mission the suppression of disorder and internal violence everywhere it appears, anywhere in the world. I don't believe that is the mission of the United States. anxious to end the war in Vietnam. I'm opposed to unilaterally withdrawing from Vietnam. And I'm glad that our policy's changed so that we're now going to the negotiating table. And we're beginning to have those negotiations. But as I said a little earlier, I don't think we can be content in the United States and think all of our responsibilities have ended and all of our obligations have ended or ceased when we realize that there were more Americans killed last week than any time during the war. That's our responsibility. It's my responsibility, obviously, but it's your responsibility. It's all our responsibilities as American citizens.
As I discussed these grave matters with a group of workers outside Los Angeles, I found that some people had less weighty matters on their minds, or perhaps on my head.
I think this is a great country, and I think we've accomplished. Get a hit. I'm just at the pitch of my campaign speech, and I look around and it says, "Get a haircut." I got a haircut. I got a haircut from Nebraska, and I got my haircut from Indiana. Can I establish in the state of California? I got my haircut. My mother told me 2 years to get my haircut. I didn't listen to her, but I've gotten my haircut since then. As I go along, if you could hear in motorcades what people yell about my hair, you wouldn't want to. That's why I got my haircut. But will you put your sign down? I got a cut. I mean, there's only certain things.
Knock it down, Bobby!
I'm just trying to defend myself. Where was I? I was telling what a good fellow I was. I wasn't ruthless. Let's see. Oh, I hadn't gotten to that yet.
Everywhere I found deep concern about the state of our economy. After a lengthy discussion with a group of businessmen, I discovered that even a presidential candidate couldn't have all the answers.
I couldn't possibly repeat that question. Is everybody here? Can you answer that, President Kennedy?
Yeah. I
Could-
think the answer is no.
When my brother was first in the Navy, he was in intelligence, and he went to Charleston, South Carolina, to make a speech. And in the course of the speech, he was explaining what you do if a bomb falls and a fire breaks out. And he gave a very eloquent speech about the fact that if a fire breaks out, in a certain kind of fire, you throw sand on it, and a certain other kind of fire, you throw water on it, but you can't throw water on the one that you should throw sand on it because it will spread it. And then at the end, and everybody thought it was a marvelous speech, and at the end he said, "Are there any questions?" And a fellow got up and said, "How can you tell one fire from the other?" And he said, "There's somebody coming next week who will explain that." Thank you very much.
Nothing has impressed me more profoundly than the energy and skill of the American people. After all, private citizens and private enterprise are primarily responsible for our greatness. To neglect the contribution they can make to our great national problems is almost to guarantee failure. Yet government has been guilty of that neglect. I hope to tap this enormous reservoir of ingenuity and experience, as I told the San Francisco Press Club.
And as I say, I think that the true answer for many of these things is the private sector playing a major role, and then arrange a system of block grants to local communities and let them, in the last analysis, make the decision as to how they're going to spend the money, whether they're going establishing certain standards at the federal level. But let them make the decision whether they're going to put the money in the field of transportation and job development, hospitals, or whatever they decide at the local level. Let them take the local responsibility. Obviously, there will be mistakes made, but obviously also the philosophy that we have at the moment and the programs that we have at the present time have not been all successful. And I think one of the reasons that there is concern in the United States, because people feel that they have no control over what happens to them. They have no control over their destiny or their future, that it's decided 1,000 miles away by some faceless figure that lives in Washington, D.C. I think that we really have to make a major effort so that people themselves, that's how this country is developed, the people themselves are developing these programs and being actively involved in these programs. If anything has come clear to me during the course of this campaign is that people want to be involved. and that they want to make sacrifices for others and are willing to make sacrifices for others. In too much of our political dialogue, it seems to me, liberals have been those who wanted to spend more money, while conservatives have been those who wanted to pretend that all problems would solve themselves, and everybody's been put in a category. He's either a liberal or he's a conservative. There is nothing liberal about a constant expansion of the federal government, stripping the citizens of their public power, the right to share in the government of affairs that was the founding purpose of this nation. And there is nothing conservative about standing idle while millions of fellow citizens lose their lives and their hopes, while their frustration turns to fury that tears the fabric of society and the freedom of all of our people. What the new politics is and what it must be and what must be recognized in this country, in the last analysis, is a reaffirmation of the best within our great political traditions: compassion for those who suffer, determination to right our wrongs within our nation, and a willingness to think, and as Abraham Lincoln said, to think and act anew, free from old concepts and false illusions. That is the kind of politics, that is the kind of leadership the American people, I believe, want this year. And that is the kind of leadership that I believe they're going to receive. Thank you very much.
In city squares and auditoriums, to today's adults and the next generation of adults, I express my intention to lighten the hand of the federal government on their daily lives, to restore increased responsibility and authority and help to the citizens of our large cities and those in smaller communities across the country. For California was not settled by a federal directive, but by enterprising men who are part of a common adventure. That is what I would like to restore, to have each of us be part of the common adventure that is America. If political life has been important in the past, today's choice surpasses anything our founding fathers dreamed about. For you will not only help choose how this country will live, you may be choosing whether it will live at all. It is important that a president understand our problems, but it is equally important that he have demonstrated the skill and energy necessary to marshal the men and ideas, the resources and the ability to organize, which are vital if we are to bring peace to our land and meet the needs of our own people. There are some who talk about my youth. It is true I am younger than many who have run for president and older than many of those who founded this country. I suppose if I could write as eloquently as Jefferson at the age of 33, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, I might be nominated by acclamation. Whatever my years, however, I would gladly match my experience with that of others who have aspired to the presidency. And after all, we are still a young country.
However, I cannot honestly promise you swift and certain solutions to the huge and shifting problems of America. I will, however, bring to that office my experience as a United States Senator, as Attorney General of the United States, and as a member of the National Security Council, and 3 years of direct participation in shaping the foreign and domestic policy of the United States. No nation can exert greater power or influence in the world than it exercises in the streets of its own capital. A nation torn by injustice and torn by violence, its streets patrolled by army units. If this is to be our country, we can doubt how long others will look to us for leadership or seek our participation. America was a great force in the world with immense prestige long before we became a great military power. That power has come to us, and we cannot renounce it. But neither can we afford to forget that the real constructive force in this world comes not from tanks or not from bombs, but from the imaginative ideas the warm sympathies, and the generous spirit of a people. Without arrogance and without hostility, or delusions of superiority toward other peoples, of other colors, and other religions, and other parts of the world, a people whose ideals for others are firmly rooted in the realities of their society that they have built in their own country for themselves and for their children.
I do not pretend to know all about the problems of California, although if elected, I will consult with men who do. I've learned a lot during this campaign, however, not only about California, but about this country. Your tradition of independent judgment, a fierce fidelity to conviction and belief, is a hope of a spreading civilization that threatens to swallow up the individual. Yet if that happens, America itself is gone. For the measure of a nation is not its wealth or power, not even its genius or its art, but the men and the women it produces. Civilization is this, and nothing more. And so if a man follows the difficult and rewarding path of the primaries, if he is willing to come in to the fresh, stern air of popular judgment, he could do worse than submit his hopes to California. For me, this primary is a vital turning point. To you, it is a choice about the kind of future you wish. Although California is the largest of our states, it is one of the 50. In Tuesday's election, however, it will be all of America. I am hopeful of your support, for with that support, we can forever silence the idea that a presidential nomination is a private affair. Through you, we can let the people choose.